Here.
Fire away, Mano. All right, and welcome to the Hive Thrive community. This is show number 7. We're rocking them up there. And Buttcoins is here with me today, and our guest Vaultec. Buttcoins, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Traveling currently, moving on my way back to Guatemala right now, visiting a lot of family in Florida.
Oh, visiting family. You'd almost think a holiday was coming up. By the way, I'm Shadow's Pub. I should have introduced myself. it's going to be one of those days. But I won't forget to introduce our guest, Vaultec. And Vaultec, I've heard your name a lot and I know very little about you, so I'm going to welcome you and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So, welcome, Vaultec.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. Well, I did learn that you joined the Hive blockchain in 2018, which actually was the legacy chain, but we'll call it the Hive anyways. So, whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in California.
California. Oh, that kind of warm area that gets really hot and fiery. Or were you
Oh
not in
yeah.
that part of the state?
No, not in that part of the state. But yeah, it's getting quite warm out. Still pretty cool in the shade, but yeah. Sun
So
will
how
get
did
you.
you end up connecting with the blockchain? I know on your
Yeah.
computer, but I mean, how did you find it?
I think it was back when Bitcoin mining was really popular, and really was a thing. So I was doing a lot of like Ethereum and Monero mining, and then that gradually kind of led into me discovering Hive and other cryptocurrencies, and eventually getting into the more development side over the years. But it mainly started for me looking at like, hey, could I make some money just mining Bitcoin or mining different cryptocurrencies, and then snowballed into where I'm in now.
So what was it about this blockchain that caught your attention and drew you in?
I saw the social element was very interesting, and the fact that it had like unique usernames that you could register an account and you can do all of that stuff that you would do with like a traditional Web 2 account, but in a blockchain. I thought that was pretty unique compared to some others. And then the kind of social element around that, like being able to post and you could suddenly make money. And so that really kind of caught my attention at first, and then gradually got more and more involved over the years.
Yeah, he thought they were really doing something when they made the natural language usernames available, and we sort of looked at it and went, "Yeah."
Yep.
So you came on. You went directly into doing some developing, or did you spend some time just doing some posting and
Um,
socializing?
I just did some posting mainly, and then I wasn't really super active for a good. I think I was just a little bit of posting in 2018, 2019, and then I didn't do too much most of 2020, and then I got more involved with like Three Speak and actual development and whatnot. And then I took a bit more of a break after that in like 2022, and then more things have kind of gone back to actually staying consistently active. So, and here I am.
So what type of stuff do you like posting about if you're not posting about developing, or is that
Um,
just
I
what
think
you love?
it was mostly development stuff. Yeah, I think it was mostly development stuff, and then maybe like just a few random like photography stuff back when steep shot was a thing. So that was mostly what I did for a bit there.
So are you into photography as a hobby, or is just you took some to try out Steep Shot?
I was for a while. I haven't been able to do it too much. I haven't really had a ton of time, but yeah, I like to do it every so often.
Nice. Any other hobbies?
I mean, I like to ride bikes, exercise, different collection of video games. That's mostly it.
Buckcoins and I were wondering if maybe you'd taken up knitting at any point.
No. No.
We'd asked.
I have done that before. I have done that for many years ago, but not recently.
It's quite popular and very relaxing.
I would
All
agree.
right then. All right then. At this point, I'm going to hand you over to Buck Coins because he's got some stuff lined up. You may want to get into knitting by the time he gets through with you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to be here chatting with you. I'm pretty excited myself. I I'll admit, I lean on the positivity side of the glass. I'm not against being skeptical and a Debbie Downer, but I prefer to just be hopeful. And for quite a while now, like there's been talk of VSC and how it's going to benefit Hive and how the the Hive ecosystem it doesn't even know what's coming. And so today I'd like to just get grounded into some of the realities of what VSC even is to the Hive blockchain. But my username is the butt coins for a reason because I didn't really come here for technical reasons. So a lot of my questions here in the beginning are not going to be so technical because I couldn't really even craft a technical question if I wanted to. I'm going to be more interested in the human side of things, and then we're going to move into some more nerdy tech questions, hopefully with some help from the audience in a little bit. But anyways, I've noticed a lot of talk over the years of we should do this, we should do that. Onboarding is broken, someone needs to fix it. Retention is terrible. Why isn't anyone doing anything about it? Why is there not more effort to keep the users we have? And all of this talk and ideas, these are cheap. But what is not cheap is the action that it takes behind these ideas. That's where the real costs come. And what I've seen from VSC is that it is quietly tackling a lot of these problems and trying to solve a lot of these issues. So so my question to you from an action based thing, and with this thought that in essence the Hive community has paid for VSC to through the DHF to kind of to help the Hive community, but also to pay for your yourself and your existence as well. So I'm kind of interested in getting under the hood and seeing what we've paid for. So, can we get into VSC's top ROIs? What are the biggest return of investment to us Hive users here? What does VSC bring to Hive that pays back the chain the fastest? What could we think about as in terms of like this could be thought about in terms of either usable tools that will make our Hive lives easier, or this could be think about helping to drive the price up, or perhaps it is a way that is bringing other Hive users into our system and bringing the broader crypto system out. So, what could you walk us through some of these current actions that you've been building and what they are and how they're going to help Hive and bring benefit to the Hive ecosystem?
For sure, absolutely. And there's a couple of things I want to mention on that, and the question that you have here is very straight to the point on what's the benefit. So I tend to measure, at least me personally, like what proposals, what's their value by three main metrics, and that is onboarding potential, goal alignment, and novelty. And so those three things kind of lay out the framework for how I think about VSC and also how I think about a lot of other proposals on Hive. And that essentially means what goals do we need to solve for our chain to be successful? I.e., do we need certain types of technology? Do we need certain platforms for potentially onboarding businesses or onboarding developers? Do we need what do we need objective things that we could all talk about? And then novelty kind of falls into the category of what's the cool experimental things that we can do on Hive that we kind of don't really know. And then the other one is onboarding, which I think you could pretty easily understand, which is how do you actually bring new users to Hive. Um, and VSC kind of falls into mostly the two categories of goal alignment and onboarding. And so tackling onboarding, what we've done is we've built a EVM compatible, wallet compatible layer, which essentially means that people with any MetaMask compatible account or any account that is using the EVM kind of Web3 JS standards can now go on to VSC and directly interact with the VSC and Hive ecosystem. So that means they can directly own Hive assets, HPD and Hive, assets on VSC. They could interact with VSC smart contracts, and they can interact with pretty much everything that we have on our system, enabling a whole new class of users that don't need Hive accounts. And ultimately, that benefits our ecosystem because that means that they can get access to Hive, and they're also accumulating HBD because that's what's required to pay for their resource credits. So they have to actually hold HBD to interact and do these things, and ultimately benefits Hive. And then for goal alignment, we have a lot of important things like smart contracts, which is something that's been widely requested by the community to have. And that's really really important of what we've done what we've done there. So we've built WebAssembly based smart contracts that allow you to code in any language, which means it's very easy to leverage already existing language and tools without needing to learn yet another language for Web3. So that's the kind of main things, and there's other stuff that we've been working on as well, like staked HBD, being transferable, liquid staked HBD, and then another common one that I've said a bunch of times and we've marketed about is the cross chain side of it, which in and of itself is a massive topic of potential there. And so there's a couple of main there's several benefits that we can go into a bit later, but I don't want to take up too much time on this point. But the cross chain element is really something where we're going to have a major impact if we're successful in bringing huge ROIs directly in actual value, not just users, but actual value and money into the Hive ecosystem. So that's our key kind of golden goose, if you'd say, that we're trying to reach and actually bring to the Hive ecosystem.
Great. So, what I feel like I'm hearing there is that really a lot of what VSC is doing is enabling more people to have a reason to come to the Hive blockchain. I see here in the chat people talking a little bit about blogging. Like, it doesn't specifically sound like VSC is going to help maybe the average current user, blogger, say, and but what it is a reason to come and utilize Hive and invest in a portion of HBD to have the ability to come and interact, maybe not even having anything to do with Hive, but you're still interacting with our ecosystem. And there's been a lot of talk about this, like, should we be rewarding bloggers or should we be rewarding actions? And it feels like VSC is much more in the sort of bring people to Hive through action and value and their interoperability mechanisms. It feels that it's not going to really help your average blogger. Am I correct in this assessment?
There's a different there's a little bit of nuance to this. I wanna say indirectly, we help bloggers by giving them direct bridges to other ecosystems. So meaning that they can cash out or they could buy Hive. We have a fiat on bridge or onboarding and offboarding system that we're working on. So we'll have two big wallets that will support out of the gate, namely Coinbase and Cash App for U.S. users. So we indirectly help them quite a bit. However, I don't think those are mutually exclusive things either. I think we can definitely have bloggers, and we could also have VSC and things that are actually bringing value. I think ultimately what it does is it diversifies the Hive portfolio, where when you're investing in Hive, when you're a Hive user, when you're part of this ecosystem, you're not just here for blogging. You're here for all of the cross-chain stuff that we're doing, all of the dApps and games that are coming on board, everything. And we're ultimately diversifying Hive so that we can combat the next cycle. And so at the end of the day, once when we get to that kind of point where we're fully diversified, we have a really strong position as the next bull market comes up, or even bear market as well.
Okay, great.
So,
That makes sense to me. You are you
so with
talking
the
there?
with the bridges you're talking about, especially the ones to fiat, would that kind of make Hive feel more like the person was using kind of a fiat platform as opposed to, oh, I'm on this crypto platform and I got so much to learn?
Yeah, that's another interesting question. There is a lot to unpack there alone. What we're working on is called the Altera DeFi app, which is supposed to be kind of a traditional banking like app that kind of makes it feel like you're using a bank account rather than a crypto platform. So we're trying to build something that makes it easy for people to come on. They log in with their MetaMask wallet, and they can buy with fiat. They can buy with different currencies, and then it's very easy for them to actually use Hive in that manner. And that's a pretty lofty goal, and it's going to take time, especially with the network and UI development and all of these things. But that is one of the very key pieces of actually enabling these users to come on board and make it feel very seamless.
Yeah, it would remove a huge barrier to growth with normies.
Absolutely.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, bud.
Okay. Yeah. I guess like, well, first, before I get into this question, what currently, like, if we I know that you've just started up your nodes. Is there already a site that, or is there already something that's usable, or you just fired up the nodes to start experimenting with that? Is nothing usable yet, or is there something usable so far?
Yeah, we're still working on the site. There's a couple of things that we have to work on with the software regarding bug fixes and API and whatnot. But the site will hopefully go live within the next 1 to 2 weeks or so. So yeah, somewhere in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And we're
Okay,
also
so
working with working with PeakD and Keychain to get it integrated into their sites. So hopefully in maybe another 2 3 weeks we'll also see that integrated as well.
great. All right. Well, let's go into a little bit of an imagination station and put ourselves into a future. We are in a future where you have accomplished a lot of the things on the road back. Well, almost all. Let's just even call it all of them. You've accomplished all of the things that you're hoping to accomplish on the roadmap, and we're in the future. Now, I would like to understand. Let's just say I've got 100 HBD burning a hole in my pocket, and I want to invest in this new VSC thing. I would like you to take that 100 HBD and take it on a little journey. Take that 100 HBD to all the corners that it can be used on the VSC and explain to us what that HBD could potentially be chosen to do, and what it could choose to do, and what are some of the reasons it would want to do that, and what is VSC offering to the various uses of that 100 HBD. So, if
Right.
that question makes sense to you, go for it.
No, I think that makes sense. You're basically asking me what can HBD be used for in the for when I hit all of those goals that we were trying to aim
Yes.
for, right? Yep. All right. Cool. So firstly, you're gonna want to have some HBD for RCs. So you'll probably put aside maybe 10 20 HBD to have some RCs in your account. Um, you can also stake it. So you can stake it as just regular staked HPD, which is gives the 15% APR. And that's also transferable, so you could like use it in contracts or whatever else you would need. You could also put it in a liquidity pool. So we'll have HBD paired with Hive and paired with Bitcoin and paired with Ethereum and paired with other stable coins. So there'll be a number of different paired assets that you could also put into. And then on top of that, you could put HBD into a wrapping provider where you basically just lock it up and then you're participating in the wrapping and unwrapping of assets. And then you earn a little bit of fees on top of the 15% APR. I think, is there any others on top of that? Those I think are the main ones, if I remember correctly. Um,
And so do you
and
do you
also,
foresee,
yeah.
I was gonna say, do you foresee one of those be, is it like, is there one like more lucrative or another? Even say we say separate of a Hive person, but like somebody sees like, what do you think is going to attract people to be like, you know what, I am gonna buy some of this HBD on VSC.
Uh,
So that
it depends on the risk. So if for just staking it normally, there's no risk, of course, because there's it's guaranteed locked up 15%. For like wrapping provider, there's a little bit more risk just because you're running a piece of software and you have to rely on that to make revenue and to have things work well. And then there's liquidity pools, which are there's known risks for liquidity pools like impermanent loss and other things like that, but potentially much higher APRs, anywhere from 20 to 40%. Um, so it's really what risk you want to tolerate, and there's a whole number of options that you can kind of pick from, and what people would do. But most of those are understood things. Like with wrapping, that's very understood. With just regular staking, it's understood. With liquidity pools, that's understood. With just holding it for RCs, that's you're just holding it. I mean, maybe it loses value because of the U.S. dollar inflation, but you're not actually risking anything in that case. And so there's all sorts of different things that people would actually need it for, depending on whether they want to be a more of investor class or whether they want to be just a user or whether they want to be an infrastructure provider or there's a whole number of things that they might want to have HBD for.
So we've got a question here from the Hive, who says, "Can you see it being used by a decentralized banking system on Hive to be able to provide mortgages?"
Loans. That's a good one. I'm very interested in doing loans. It's kind of a side topic to what we're doing, and I want to also do it in a way that's correct. Like some of the examples that have been not good examples is like ThorFi, from ThorChain. They got hacked for basically 200 million due to their loan system. So if we do that in the future, I want to make sure that it's secure and it doesn't risk any funds. Um, so yeah, but I'm very interested in actually doing that at some point.
An anti-socialist wants to know when XMR. Eco tells me that's an important question, so we'll ask it right now.
I'll have to look at that. It depends because it's a bit different than other cryptocurrencies in the way it functions about privacy and just how do you actually bring that asset over. We could probably do something where we have like a swap system, but maybe not a full-fledged wrap. Um, so we could just make it so you could like swap for Monero and then that's it. But it won't be transferable for both privacy reasons and also just it's not might not even be possible. But yeah, that's definitely on my roadmap. We're mostly targeting Ethereum and Solana is the kind of two main ones we want to hit on top of Bitcoin and Litecoin and Doge and all of the forks that we could add on.
yes. So, this kind of dips into my next question here, which is, you have this interoperability, and I sort of making a semi assumption that one of the main, or if not the main target is Bitcoin, as it is the leader there. So let's say that I'm a Bitcoin maxi, and I'm in an elevator with you, and I you have this opportunity to get me out of my Bitcoin maxi world. Can you elevator pitch me this shit coin that you have and the services it provides, and why I, as a Bitcoin maxi, need to hear about this when I just want to leave this elevator and only think about Bitcoin.
I would probably pitch it as like a Lightning Network replacement that doesn't have the problems of like channel management and all of those major issues as Lightning. That's kind of how we've been approaching it. However, I would say that I have talked to quite a few Bitcoin maxis, including several in person at different Bitcoin events, and they're typically still like, closed-minded even to second layer things. So we would probably target people who are more into like rootstock in some of these Bitcoin layer twos, and more lay people who agree Bitcoin is a good source of value, but not like you know not like everything is terrible type of thing. So we probably take it from more of that angle, but we definitely, if it was a Bitcoin maxi, if we could convince them, we'd probably just say an improved Lightning Network.
So your target market is not Bitcoin maxis. They're too closed.
No, 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 definitely not.
Well, it'd be nice to figure out where the dagger was to like kind of give the stab and wake them up, because I actually have a Bitcoin maxi friend, so I was really trying to get the pitch from you so that I could go and try to stab him a little bit, but they're not the target, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go get Nody on this. So why don't we just talk a little bit about? Well, first off, you guys have processed some of your first blocks. How many nodes are up currently?
Well, last I checked of the last VSC election, it is 27.
And what type of number are you shooting for?
At least a minimum of 40. 40 to 50 would be good. At least active nodes should be at least 40.
So let's say that I am moderately technical and I understand enough to give it a go. And I'm interested in launching a VSC node. And I'm around the blockchain. I'm reading. I see a post from that great wizard GTG, and he has some minor questions and suggestions. I'm wondering why someone so smart as him is having any issues, and I'm wondering if this is normal and maybe this is over my head, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about minor mistakes, and you could let us know what we would even need to vaguely know if we wanted to be a noob node runner.
No, no, Nodi.
Yeah, so we were trying to make node operation as simple as possible. So we set it up as just a basic Docker container that you can go into your server, download it, and then just run. And it should handle pretty much the entire setup for you. There is a little bit of like CLI knowledge that you need. You need to understand how to buy a server, how to go in and use the command prompt, all of that stuff. Um, Aside from that, it's as simple as we can possibly get it. And then you'll just need to do the configuration, which is adding in your Hive details, active key, all of that of the account that you've set up, and then actually getting it set up for consensus. You need to stake a minimum of 2,000 Hive into VSC, which is locking it up in VSC. It's not HP. It's actually locked up on the VSC network. And so you would just deposit 2,000 Hives to the network, and then you'd run a transaction through our front end, and then it's set up. It's ready to go. So pretty much everything should be pretty easy to set up. And if there's any problems, we'll always be available to help. We haven't seen too many issues with node runners. A few like smaller bugs and stuff that we've had to fix, but the setup has been very smooth.
Okay, so I'm hearing I need to basically know what equipment that I need, and I need 2,000 Hive power, and I need to know some basic
And locked up Hive,
commands. Locked up
not Hive
Hive.
power.
not Hive Power. I need to send Hive to you to be locked up, or it's locked up in your smart contract or something like this.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so I've done this and I'm working on it, and it's going pretty smoothly. What, like, what's my ROI on my locked up 2,000? How long does that got to be there, or how long does it take me to earn that?
At the moment, we don't have any rewards, but later this summer we will start distributing rewards. So this is kind of the little bit of an early phase of that. But we will be doing rewards later this summer. Well, we'll send out a portion of the Dow Treasury account every day or so for good operation. But in terms of actual commitment, it's very small commitment. There's a 1 day lockup period or so. So when you lock up, it takes 1 day to unlock for about 5 elections, which is 6 hours each. So it could be a minimum of 24
Buenos
hours
días.
to
Hola.
30 hours or
¿Están
so.
para una persona?
Cool.
Sí, para una persona, sí. Ah, ¿para qué?
Uh, there you go, got
Okay,
'em.
that takes care of
Uh,
that.
yeah. So if you want to leave at any point in time, you can do that by just unstaking. So yeah, commitment is pretty short, and then we'll be doing rewards later this summer.
And what type of rewards are we talking? I mean, like I have my Lambo down payment, and I'm just am I going to be able to afford it?
It depends on the network revenue ultimately. So, we have our first source of revenue, which is staked HBD on the network. So RCs that are generated from, or sorry, I should say, hot HBD that is used for RC generation also generates a little bit of HBD from the staked yields, and then we'd use that for node operation. So essentially as more and more users come on the VSC and start using the network and having a little bit of HPD in their account, they would generate revenue for the network, and that would support node operators. And then when we start getting things like liquidity pools going and wrapping and all these other sources of income, they would further add to that pool, where we would just accumulate a pretty large pool of rewards that would slowly go out over every day by day basis. And eventually, longer term, that'll also establish a DAO. So we'll have kind of a DAO account similar to the DHF, where we could also draw funds from for development, so we could be fully self-sustaining. And also the potential as well, which is something we've talked about a bunch, which is just burning some of that revenue. So any aside from stuff getting locked up, like in the form of consensus staking, and the form of this DAO account kind of has some of this balance locked up, we might also consider burning that amount or burning some of the amount, so it creates deflationary pressure onto Hive, and ultimately helps pay back the development costs of VSC longer term. So we're hoping to make this a fully self-sustaining model where we have a fully end-to-end kind of flow here, where the network supports there's ultimately the money that comes from Hive that we use for development, and then the network gets online and the network starts generating revenue for itself, so it self funds, and it could self fund development as well, and then it also creates deflationary pressure onto Hive, which helps pay back the initial development costs over the years of operation. And if we can get to the volumes that we might see with like Thorchain or some of these other cross-chain projects, we could easily pay back the cost of development in like a week or two, with the current rate of some of these big cross-chain projects. So if we're successful, we could be adding multiple times the value of development within a very short period of time to Hive.
Wow, that is awesome to hear. I often sometimes feels like, I think the DHF is great for an incubator. That's what it's there for. It's like we got an idea, we want to go for an idea. Okay, we're gonna try to fund this, but I don't hear a ton about how we don't use the DHF after our initial funding round, or how we wean ourselves from this and we pay the DHF back or the Hive community back. So I find that refreshing. So thank you for having a plan and giving back to the Hive community in your words there. And we'll see if those words become actions as we've been talking about today. So yeah, let's move on here. Um, let's get into smart contracts. Little bit of smart contracts for dummies part. Let's go super simple. Explain a smart contract to me like I'm a 5-year-old, which I pretty much am, and then explain to them me why does Hive need them?
Yeah, so smart contracts are essentially immutable pieces of customizable logic. So that means that someone who wants to write behavior that is not already defined, they can do that. So in the case of Hive, the defined behavior is blogging, right? Blogging, tokens, transfers of Hive and HBD, staking, unstaking, savings account, all of that, and that currently exists, and there's not really much we can do. It requires the core team to do development to actually change that, right? And that could be good or bad, but the key thing here is it doesn't offer the flexibility that developers need or companies need. And so with smart contracts, you can actually build something that enables any business or anyone who is building on Hive or building on VSC to build basically everything under the sun that they could imagine, right? And with the tooling that we're providing, we're making it as easy as possible to do that. So custom tokens, NFTs, loan lending, liquidity pools, all of that kind of stuff and more can be built using smart contracts. So yeah.
So okay. So my understanding is that you're gonna have like kind of you're going to have VSC smart contracts specifically, and they are going to be, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but they're going to kind of be like backed by VSC, and they are like through you, and people are going to know that. But then it also is sounding like you're kind of, if I can be a little loose with my wordings, it's almost like you're making a smart contracts playground, and you're saying, here's a bunch of base level smart contracts. You go ahead and use them and customize them and make them for your use case. So you're making a little playground. Now, if I were to say, I guess the idea is we can fully trust some VSC sponsored or backed smart contract, but then we're getting into a little bit into, say, maybe meme territory, or like you don't have a lot of control over what people do with these smart contracts, and potentially some of them could be more in the nefarious nature, and we need to be more careful. I guess so. I suppose my question is you can clarify anything in there that I am getting wrong or not saying correctly, and then maybe you could talk a little bit about like the difference between your own VSC contract and one that somebody else would create, and then whether or not there's going to be any policing of misbehaving smart contracts.
Yeah, so we're basically the EVM of Hive, right? An EVM, you can deploy anything you want on Ethereum and do essentially everything, right? There's no policing, there's nothing like that, and it's the same kind of scenario with VSC. However, that does not mean that there isn't a term of like reputation and auditing and some level of at least verifying and trust that exists in these ecosystems. You're not gonna interact with a random smart contract on Ethereum. It's not really gonna happen. You'll usually go through a provider like a front end that has a list of smart contracts that it interacts with and trusts, and that's typically how you interact. And so we're basically doing that exact same thing here. And as for our smart contracts, really what we're going to be building is just a set of standards for smart contracts. So things like liquidity pools, tokens, NFTs, those are things that we are just starting to work on. It's kind of in the early stages, starting with the liquidity pool. But just essentially building a set of contracts with a certain set of standards as well. So we'll also have like some different standards. So like a token contract will look like this, and like an NFT contract will look like this. A liquidity pool contract will look like this, and that will be kind of our core standards for how we define a lot of other things that people might want to build. But aside from that, it's very much similar to how EVM operates, where it's an open playground that anyone can use, and there might be things, common standards like the ERC 20 and ERC 721 that will also kind of build, or similar standards to that.
All right.
So Vaultec, a little birdie named Starkers has asked, VSC will be at Talentland, Mexico next week. Is there anything in particular you'll be looking for at the event, or is there anything new to demo?
I'm hoping to demo our new front end a little bit. I'm still kind of deep in the trenches of getting development wise, so hoping we can have everything ready by then. However, there is one important thing, at least for the Hive community, that is coming out around that time, which is our next proposal. So while I'm there at Talentland, shortly before, I'll have the first proposal, or our next proposal, going live. And then while I'm at Talentland, I'll try to be demoing our new front end, and really just also engaging with people about cross chain and what we're trying to offer, and see what the kind of market is like there.
So what are you looking? You're going to be at Talentland. Are you there trying to bring people into VSC, or you're just basically wanting to let people see it, experience it?
Yeah,
Like, what's your goals?
yeah. I'm trying to like understand what people I'm trying to understand like what people's feedback is with like VSC, because there is kind of this outside perspective of other things. And I've talked to people who are Bitcoiners, like Bitcoin maxis before, and Ethereum people, and even traditional finance, and they all have like varying perspectives of what VSC is and what it does. And so essentially, I'm trying to kind of give it a test of like, what's our strategy, how do we market it, and how do we talk to people and also build kind of connections there. Because you never know, I might meet someone who is a very prominent investor, or maybe someone who is a very prominent builder that is interested in this kind of technology, and that might be something that we can offer to them. And that's where we want to kind of go in and say, hey, here's what we have to offer. Here's what we're building. Here's why it's important. And then ultimately get feedback on it. And that's really what all of these events should be, right? We should be going out. We should be pitching people. We should be saying, "Hey, we're Hive. We got this. What do you think about it?" And then if it doesn't match up with most people's expectations, then we should try to figure out a different strategy. And so that's exactly what we've been doing here and there over the last few years. And then what we're going to continue to do at these different conferences, but getting more and more into actually in their face, like, yes, we have this built, use this piece of software, we have this app that's available, and trying to actually get users acquired. We're still not quite there yet. This is still kind of a bit early for Talentland, at least like presenting something that's workable, but definitely want to continue to kind of pitch and show what we're doing, and get that engagement going. And we've definitely made a lot of connections even at the previous events we've gone to, which have been great to kind of give a good test of where VSC is sitting at.
I think that's an important element that you were talking about. That, if I understood you correctly, you're basically saying, let's get out of the bubble that I'm comfortable with and see how my communication about my project is landing on people who know nothing about it. And I think that's important to do.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And this is actually, I think, the best example I have of this. I was talking to a woman who was in traditional finance, I can't remember the name of the finance company, but it was one of those common like investment retirement fund type deal. And she has a bit of crypto background, but not really enough to understand the problem. And I gave her about a 30-minute long conversation, not super long, about what we're actually solving, why it's important, and why it changes everything. And by the end of that session, she totally got it. So people always think that like, yeah, crypto is so complicated. You have to explain to them hours of time, and they have to be into crypto to get user adoption. I actually don't believe that at all. I believe that if you can present it the right way to the right people, and in a way that uses language that they already understand, it could be done in 30 minutes very easily, very easily. And I
It's
was
how we
able
tell our
to
story.
successfully, yeah, yep, yep. And I was successfully able to do that with this woman, and yeah, she's very interested in what we're doing at that point. And so that was a perfect example of where we are ultimately bringing change to the market, and we're bringing things that will add value to not just Hive but also the rest of the crypto ecosystem. And we just need to keep pushing and keep doing.
So this actually brings up just a personal curiosity. Real world retail. Like, are there any use cases that you see with VSC for kind of front desk retail? Say let's imagine I own a hotel and have lots of guests, and I have a cafe, and I sell drinks. And is there any use case where VSC is going to be useful to my business?
Yep, yep, absolutely. And there's some important nuance here that I like to note. Is that I think it's a little bit early for making that happen. Because crypto users don't have ways to just have like there's a lot of disconnection in the ecosystem. And we need to solve that issue first with the things that we're doing with cross chain and payments and interoperability, et cetera, et cetera. And then once we've reached that kind of goal, then we could really heavily focus on how do we make payments. And I think in terms of what we were offering, there's pretty major potential for that. Since there's really no technology that has actually made payments on blockchain work. Everything has been store of value, investment, meme coins, all of these different things. And I was talking to it was the lead for startup management for it's like an incubator kind of startup thing for Stripe, which is one of the biggest credit card processors out there. And about 8 years ago, they were doing crypto integration before everything was really more mainstream, and they were trying to do it for payments. And their issue was is that things were too slow, it was too expensive, and it was complicated. And now they've moved to more of kind of centralized and custodial solutions that make it possible, but don't make it very practical for everyone, right? And of course not decentralized. And so we really need to build a technology that ultimately like fully solves that problem in a way that most blockchains have only partially solved. And that's something that we, aside from the cross chain, just kind of finance and trading side of things, are very interested in actually doing of making kind of this global payment infrastructure for any cryptocurrency and any kind of asset class that's on our network. And then in conjunction with stuff that we're doing cross chain wise, that's also incredibly valuable. Um, so we're going to be working on that in terms of just like providing a UI, like providing interfaces, providing tools. We want to provide similar things to how Keychain works, where you could scan a QR code and kind of pay an invoice. And a lot of that stuff we definitely want to do, but it is also kind of a learning curve where it's going to take time for us to build this out and kind of start getting users acquainted to the way our system works, and then kind of gradually building it into already existing systems. And integrations will be very important in making that happen as well.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that I asked my question too early. You're not quite ready for the real world, but you're building the pieces behind the scenes so that you can tackle that aspect when the time is ripe for that aspect. Um, And so basically, you know, I throughout this conversation today, I hear the interoperability and kind of capturing value from people in the crypto world that are already into crypto and have their wallets, and we're going to give them another vehicle for making changes and having more use cases, and keeping their coins right in their individual wallet, which sounds like a very unique use case that I haven't really heard of. So it seems like you're pretty excited about that. But I guess my question here is, what are you most excited about? You personally, you Vaultec, what are you most proud of or most excited about that you're offering? And or maybe the one that you think you're most excited for the way that Hive is going to receive it because it's really going to benefit Hive. And then maybe one that is like you're most excited about this aspect because you're just proud of it. And then maybe you got a little baby novelty one that you're actually secretly also pretty excited about and you think people should understand a little more about.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing, and just in general thing that I'm excited about right now is the HPD Hive liquidity pool. Because we're a business, we have income, we have money, we have to trade it for Hive and fiat. And so when we're a prime example of this is that we're trading for Hive, HPD for Hive, and we're getting massive amounts of slippage and spread due to the current internal market. And we're building a liquidity pool which will pretty much fully eliminate that, and make it so that we could trade much more efficiently with less loss, and ultimately accumulate a much larger pool of liquidity that will help stabilize both the Hive price and also the HPD price. Um, and that's coming actually a lot sooner than most people think. We've already built it. And we have some more work to do on testing and getting it ready and deployed for mainnet, but we've already built the code for that, and it's just a matter of testing and integration and getting that across the finish line. And so we're really, really excited to get that. I'm very excited, and I think the team is pretty excited to get that deployed and actually usable, because I think it'll change a lot for Hive users immediately within a very short period of time.
So how will we know that you've got that there and that we can access it easily? Will it be integrated
Well,
into current front ends, or is it something that we would go directly to something that you're
it'll
offering?
be on our UI first, but it'll probably get in
Right.
like Peak D. It'll definitely get in Keychain and probably also Peak D, but Keychain for sure since they already offer a lot of that swappy functionality. Um, but wow, it'll be within our front end first, and then Keychain will probably come right after that.
So it sounds like it may end up being fairly seamless and people will hardly even know that it's you that they can thank for it.
I mean, I'll give you a really good example of what it looks like. If you know, do you guys know the Peak D like swap widget for the internal market? It's just a very basic little like you just swap one for the. Let me see if I could find it. It's market. It's like this. Here we go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Just a very simple little swap widget. We're basically going to offer the exact same thing, but in terms of actual ease of use, this is basically as easy as it could get, and that's
Nice.
the norm for most. That's the norm for most like liquidity pools and dexes, compared to something that looks like this, which is um, quite a bit more complicated to use, and a bit
It's
more jargon.
mind-boggling when you look at it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, I like
I
that simplicity up above.
yeah, exactly. And so we'll be building for that, and I think the existing front ends can easily integrate that in their current footprints, and make it a lot easier for the end user, and ultimately building a large source of liquidity.
Nice. So we're winding down to the end of the hour, and is there anything that you would like people to know that we haven't touched on?
Our next proposal is coming out within I think the next 5 to 6 days or so. before I go to Talentland
Mhm.
for sure, but it's coming out this week. So stay tuned for that. Be prepared to get your active keys ready to vote, because we're gonna need all the support we can get. Although I think it's definitely there, but you know we always want more votes. So just keep an eye out for that, and hopefully once that's approved, I'll be a little less stressed because I'm a bit worried about that. But I think it'll get through no problem. But yeah, our next proposal is coming out very soon, and we have a lot that we're building, and this is going to be our it's going to be the next steps, and I hope to build things faster even. So I hope to make development about twice as fast over the next 6 months or so.
So throw us your very loose timeline of when you think a handful of these things, like go through your next year. What are the drops going to be? And by the way, it's your opportunity to out there in the audience ask your tough. We'll field one more tough question. So go ahead and just throw it in the chat.
Menno's got an uncomfortable one. At least he thinks it's uncomfortable. I think it's straightforward. Does the VSC team have a war chest to survive things not working out for a while?
What do you mean by not working out? Like, could you just clarify?
If there's,
Like you mean
let's say
development
there's
or?
a delay getting the proposal passed.
Oh yeah, we have a little bit of funds set aside, and then I have personal funds that I could probably put forward towards it. I don't want to take too much of a risk though. Like if it doesn't get funded and I have to pay a bunch of people and all that wouldn't be too super great. But we're prepared, and I think it will pass with that issue. But it's just always a concern when you're going into these funding cycles, and that's kind of the primary thing that's been on my mind. So I think it'll be fine. Just need to get through it and get to the finish line.
All right. Anything else, bud?
Yeah, well, no, I heard next month we're getting the trading the trading page, and some things were getting released to the live site. So I heard that. I was just looking for a real vague timeline of over the next year, where what he sees coming out and approximations of when.
Sure. So, hoping they'll launch the front end within the next 1 to 2 weeks. That just does the basic transfer, deposit withdrawal, EVM wallet integration, all of that stuff. Then the liquidity pool around a month or so from now. Probably start development of the Bitcoin, finishing off the Bitcoin wrapping work that we've done so far. And then about 3 months launch Bitcoin wrapping, and then launch a few other tokens like Doge, Litecoin, etc. Over the following few months after that. And then kind of shift gears a bit and on integrating EVM. Focus on integrating EVM wrapping. So that'll be Ethereum, USDC, and XDAI to start off with, and then we'll gradually add more assets over time. And then I think and that'll be later in the fall, so like November, December timeframe, roughly speaking. And then ideally next spring we'll be working on a Solana integration, but we'll wait and see. We're gonna grow the team quite a bit between now and then, so we'll hopefully have more dev power to do things with.
Well, that sounds awesome. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the main stuff is should be out by, we're all hoping for this big pump coming, whatever, September, October, November time period. So it sounds like a lot of this stuff is going to be done and ready for the waterfall of new users that we all would like to see. So thanks so much for
Definitely.
coming and chatting with us today. Is there any other vital questions in the audience, or do you have anything else there, Miss Shadows Pub?
So I see Nifty, good to see you, Nifty, has dropped in a couple of links over on Twitter where you can follow VSC. That'd be the VSC and VSC intern. So if you had not already followed them, probably a good idea to. Since you do update it on a regular basis, correct? Vaultec?
Sorry. Could you repeat the question?
I said you do update it on a regular basis, right? Like, we're not going to follow it just to sit there and look at it.
You mean via C and whatnot?
Yes.
Or oh yeah, yeah. We'll be posting plenty of updates.
Good to know. Good to know. Also like to add my thanks. I've learned a lot more about VSC. I've heard, a lot of comments here and there, and conversation, but I've never really seen the big picture. I think I see more of the big picture right now, so that is a good thing. And that is bringing us down to the end of Hive Thrive. Who's our guest next week, Bud?
Next week, we have Focus Now coming to talk with us about Spend HBD and his onboarding flex over there in Nigeria and opening up a store and really creating a massive use case for spending HBD out there in the real world.
That should be an awesome one. That should be a really interesting one to be able to, with all the stuff we've been learning lately about the spend HPD. So I'm going to take a moment to do a plug here. This is Tuesday. Thursday, join me over on the Dreamport Discord for Pimp Your Post Thursday at noon Eastern. And I think with that, we can wrap it up for today. Thanks everyone for coming. See you next week.